The lunar mansions and 28 spirits and talismans of magic taken from the classical sources. Hello everyone, thank you for joining me today. This is Taliesin McKnight, and this is a video for Patreon only. So I really appreciate my Patreon subscribers. It really helps me out a great deal. And after a year, if you're watching this a year later, it'll be free for everybody. So, the lunar mansions. What are the 28 lunar mansions? The 28 lunar mansions are found in China. They're found in Indian or Vedic astrology. It's found in Chinese astrology, so China, India. It's found in Islamic and European traditional astrology. So the 28 mansions of the moon are found in China, India, the Islamic world, European traditional astrology. It's found around the world. What are the 28 mansions of the moon? So there are two different cycles that we see monthly with the moon. We are all familiar with the waxing and the waning of the moon. And this is separate, totally different, unrelated to the lunar mansions. The moon can be waxing or waning in any of the mansions. But we're all familiar with the waxing and waning of the moon. The moon grows, appears to grow, is full, and then it decreases in light, and then it's a new moon. That is a different cycle. That has to do with the relationship between the moon and the sun as seen from Earth. A totally separate system, or systems, are the 28 lunar mansions. In some systems, there are 27. The 28 mansions of the moon have to do with where the moon is in the zodiac. So completely unrelated to its growing and decrease, it's a separate system. It is where the moon is in the zodiac. And of course, there is tropical astrology, there's sidereal, there are different forms. In the classical tradition in Europe and the grimoires and such, we use tropical astrology. They knew all about the precession of the equinoxes. They could look through a telescope and see that Aries was not based on the constellation. That's a whole other topic. In these videos, we use the tropical zodiac. People are free to use whatever they wish. But that's been used in traditional astrology in Europe all through the Renaissance, all the way back. They knew about it. Ptolemy knew about the precession of the equinoxes 2,000 years ago. They could look through a telescope and see. The tropical zodiac is based upon the sun enters into Aries at the vernal equinox. The sun enters into Cancer at the summer solstice. The sun enters into the sign of Libra at the autumnal equinox. The sun enters into Capricorn at the winter solstice. In the same way, the mansions of the moon. It divides the zodiac into 28 sections. The moon enters, the first mansion begins at 0 degrees Aries. And it continues for 12 degrees 51 minutes. Okay, the 8th lunar mansion is entering into Cancer. The 15th lunar mansion is entering into Libra. And the 22nd lunar mansion enters into Capricorn. So people are free to use what they wish. The 28 lunar mansions, as we talk about them here, it's a division of the zodiac the first mansion again is the beginning of Aries. The eighth in Cancer, the 15th in Libra, and the 22nd in Capricorn. So the mansions of the moon, they're 28 spirits, and they're mentioned by Agrippa, and they're mentioned in Picatrix. The there are 28 spirits, and there are different forms of talismans. So basically you have 28 spirits, you have different versions, 28 talismans. So this is a whole system of magic. The 28 mansions of the moon, like this circle behind my head, make a full cycle. They could be used for love, money, protection. They could be used for anything. So just like a full cycle touches on all aspects of life, this is a whole system of magic. People don't have to use all these different forms of magic. There are some people that are very effective and powerful workers that only use bottle magic or mojo hands. There are some people that just use candle magic. A magician can just work with the 28 lunar mansions and have a successful practice. And they could work for love, money, protection, getting rid of things, finding lost objects. They can do all of these things just with the lunar mansions, because the 28 mansions of the moon make a full circle. They touch upon all aspects of life. This is a full system of magic. So the 28 lunar mansions are found in China, India. They usually use 27. It's found in Islamic and European astrology. It's found all over the world, the 28 lunar mansions, or the lunar mansions. Again, it has to do with where the sun is in the zodiac. And there are spirits. If we go to the Agrippa's 3 books of occult philosophy, and we flip to the 3rd book, we go to the 2nd book, chapter 33. Of the 28 mansions of the moon, he goes into the lunar mansions and explains them in Agrippa. And then if you go to book 3, chapter 24, yesterday on my regular channel, I talked about the Agrippa and the 72 Shem angels. That was the next chapter. The chapter before, he mentions all these spirits. So Agrippa here, book 3, chapter 24, of the names of spirits and their various impositions. He says there are again 28 angels which rule the 28 mansions of the moon, whose names in order are these. And then he names them off. I don't want to say the names because I think it's powerful. So let's take a look at what Agrippa says in book 2, chapter 23. So the 3 books of occult philosophy, this is from the 16th century. Again, we're using classical sources. Book 2, chapter 33, of the 28 mansions of the moon and their virtues. And seeing the moon measures the whole zodiac in the space of 28 days, hence it is that the wise men of the Indians and ancient astrologians have granted 28 mansions to the moon, which being fixed to the 8th sphere do enjoy, as Alpheus said, diverse names and properties from the diverse signs and stars which are contained in them, through which while the moon wandered it obtained other and other powers and virtues. But every one of these mansions, according to the opinion of Abraham, contained 12 degrees and 1 in 50 minutes and almost 26 seconds, whose names and also their beginnings in the zodiac of the 8th sphere are these. The first is called Al-Nat, that is the horns of Aries. His beginning is from the head of Aries of the 8th sphere. It causes discords and journeys. The second is called Alotime. That is the belly of Aries, and his beginning is from the 12th degree of the same sign, 51 minutes, 22 seconds complete. It conduceth to the finding of treasures and the retaining of captives. The third is called Atharai, that is showering, or Pleiades. His beginning is from the 25 degrees of Aries, complete 42 minutes and 51 seconds. It is profitable to sailors, huntsmen, and alchemists. The fourth mansion, I'm not going to read, this is the last one I'm going to read. The fourth mansion is called Aldebaran, or Aldelamen. That is the eye or head of Taurus. His beginning is from the 8th degree of Taurus, 34 minutes and 17 seconds of the same. Taurus being excluded, it causes the destruction and hindrances of buildings, fountains, wells, of gold mines, the flight of creeping things, and begetteth discord, etc., etc. He goes through all the 28 mansions. And then at the end, he says, in these 28 mansions do lie hid many secrets of the wisdom of the ancients, by the which they wrought wonders on all things which are under the circle of the moon. And they attributed to every mansion his resemblances, images, and seals, and his precedent intelligences, and they did work by the virtue of them after diverse manners. And then in Book 3, Chapter 24, he names off all the spirits. So there are 28 spirits that you can call upon. Now, for a modern book, which is really not modern, because what it does is it collects all of these different classical texts, even the Astromagia, it has Picatrix, it has all of this. The Mansions of the Moon, a Lunar Zodiac for Astrology and Magic by Christopher Warnock. So The Mansions of the Moon by Christopher Warnock. This book is excellent. This book has everything that you could need to get started with this. It has instructions on how to construct a ritual. It has these different talismans that are taken from Picatrix, like this one here. And he even in the appendix, he has like the different, what does Picatrix say about the mansions? What does the Astromagia say? He has all of this in one book. If you get anything, I would get this. I'm going to give a monetized link. I'm not greedy. Like, I do these things because I love to share information. But, you know, I've got to have my bread and butter as well. So I've got monetized links up in the description. If you want to purchase a copy, it's excellent. Now we go to Picatrix, which was written in the 11th or 12th century. The Picatrix. We're going to go to Book 1, Chapter 4. Again, we go through these classical sources. It's actually pretty simple. People are scared, for some reason, many people, to go into these classical stuff like, oh, it's so difficult. It's not. I do it in these videos. I show you where it's very simple. Also, another book that's really good, this is a 15th century grimoire, The Book of the Moon, or Liber Lunae. Very good. It has instructions on incenses and how to work with the spirits and talismans. So this is another one. This is by Don Carr with a foreword by Stephen Skinner. The Book of the Moon, Liber Lunae, and also has Sefer HaLevana, which is a Hebrew text of Jewish magic dealing with this. But we're going to go into Picatrix, Book 1, Chapter 4. Now, this section deals mostly with elections. Finding good times for activities. So, you could work with planetary or lunar mansion candle magic. You could make it a candle spell, petitioning the spirit with offerings or something. You could do talismans, which is probably the best way to do things for best effect. You could also just try to time. You could also look at your natal chart. What degree was the moon when you were born? And take a look at that as an extra little thing in your natal chart. The lunar mansions are mentioned in some forms of the Key of Solomon. It was written about in Francis Barrett's The Magus in 1801 or whatever. But you could also just time events, and that's really what Picatrix's book 1, chapter 4 says, the general theory and arrangement of the heavens for making images. It's interesting, right before he goes into the lunar mansions, the author, he first goes into the importance of believing in magic. So that's not just a modern concept. Right here in Picatrix, 11th, 12th century, he goes into the importance of belief. You need to have faith in your workings. This is what it says. Furthermore, they ought to believe firmly in the works that they do with images, so that what they do will be true and without doubt. Nor should they harbor doubts concerning its effectiveness, since this work is done in order to test or prove whether it be true or not. Rather, they should have faith in their mind that it be true. By this, the rational spirit is strengthened, and joined to that virtue of the upper world, from which proceeds the celestial spirit that acts in the image. And in this way, what is desired will come to pass. Thus, it is necessary to believe firmly, because it is by this that the image will have the power to call upon the cooperation of the intelligence, and of all the primary and principal intelligences, and all the intermediate intelligences. Among all these intelligences, the human soul or intellect is clearly the lowest that can call upon the cooperation of others. And then only when it operates and cooperates with a firm and full intention and diligence, and with greatest solicitude, this is called faith in a proposition. In other works of craftsmanship, if the craftsman is not diligent, solicitude and full intention can accomplish the work, but only rarely in making images will this function and complete the work. So right before he goes into the mansions of the moon, he talks about the importance of faith and belief. Next, he goes into using the mansions of the moon to plan out activities, like planning a wedding in a certain lunar mansion, or a date, or a job interview. As an example, you can try that and see how it works. Now, however, I'm reading Picatrix here, Book 1, Chapter 4. Now, however, I wish to teach you one thing very necessary for this work, and that is working when conditions are best around the world. I say to you that you should not do anything in this work unless the moon stands in a degree convenient and appropriate for the work you intend to do, because the moon has powers and manifests works in all things that are beneath her, and none of them are hidden from her. And hereafter I will tell you the highest considerations in these processes that will produce much for you in this work. But for now I intend to speak of the effects and works of the moon within the boundaries of her mansions, according to the consensus of all the wise of India about the 28 mansions of the moon. Then I'll just list a little bit of this. The first mansion, I might just read the first one. The first mansion of the moon, then, is called Al-Nath. It begins at the first minute of Aries and ends at 12 degrees 51 minutes 26 seconds of that sign. The wise of India begin journeys and take medicines when the moon is in this mansion. This mansion also ought to be used as the root in every image that you wish to make in order to go on a journey, so as to travel safely and return in good health. So if you're planning a journey, you might do it when the moon enters the first mansion as a good timing. So that's like moving with the ebb and tides of nature. You're not going against the current. You're moving with the tides of nature. It's like sailing in the appropriate weather, not going out in a storm to go sailing. So that man is not just an island unto himself or herself. That is looking at kind of the astral weather going on. Anyways, this goes into all 28 mansions and elections. Now if we go to book 4, chapter 9, I believe. Let me check. Where is it? Yeah, book 4, chapter 9. It goes into specific talismans, so it starts on page 288 of this book. Book 4, chapter 9. I'll look at the second mansion. Albotine. That's what Agrippa says. Albotine is for the removal of anger. Here's an example. This is straight from the 11th, 12th century text, the Picatrix on a talisman or a magic working of the second lunar mansion. Check this out. This is from 11th, 12th century. The second mansion is called Albotine and is for the removal of anger. When the moon is passing through this mansion, which is 12 degrees, it begins at 12 degrees, 51 minutes of Aries. When the moon is passing through this mansion, take white wax and mastic and melt them together over a fire. Then remove this from the fire and make the form of a crowned king. Suffumigate it with lignum aloes, agarwood, and say, you, Enadil is the name of the spirit that governs the second lunar mansion. Enadil, you, Enadil, drive away this anger from me, and let me be reconciled with him, and let my petition be satisfactory to him. Keep this image with you, and it shall be done. Know that Enadil is the name of the Lord of this mansion. So I just mentioned the name of the second lunar mansion spirit. Simple spell. The fifth lunar mansion is Almazan and is for the receiving of good from kings and high officials. When the moon is passing through this mansion, fashion a figure from silver, and in it sculpt a head without a body. And above the head write the name of the Lord of this mansion in your petition, and suffumigate it with sandalwood, and say, you, Kabil. That's the name of the spirit of the fifth lunar mansion, Kabil. You, Kabil, do such and such for me, and let my petition be granted. Let me receive good things and the best from the king and his counselors. When you've done this, carry the seal in a box, and your request will be fulfilled. When you wish to see something when you sleep, dream magic, right here, 11th, 12th century. When you wish to see something when you sleep, place the talisman under your head at night when you sleep, thinking always in your mind about what you wish, and you will get an answer for what you seek. Know that Asarez is the name of the Lord of this mansion. Here it says Asarez. Well, anyway, so this book I think is great. The Mansions of the Moon by Christopher Warnock. He goes through the classical material. So I think it's great. He even provides these talismans that you can take these talismans and color them and make a ritual out of that. Like this one, Gabriel, that's the name of that spirit. So it's a practice of magic with these spirits. Amixiel, spirit of the third lunar mansion. Yeah, Amixiel. So there's a talisman you can color in. It's kind of a modern approach, but really like paper talismans are found in the classical material. I figure, if it works, it works. So putting all of this together, it's very simple. There are 28 lunar mansions. To see what mansion the moon is in, open up your astrology app and look at a chart of the current conditions. Look at what degree the moon is in. Very simple. There's also lunar mansion calculators and stuff. So all you do is think of what you want, find the lunar mansion, and this book goes into a lot of this, and light some candles, have your image. What's interesting is this text has it where you can print the image, color it in at that time. I would do the hour of the moon. At the hour of the moon, you don't have to worry about planetary days. Hour of the moon, you can color this image in. call on the spirit with the wave the talisman in the incense smoke, and call on the spirit, say the name of the spirit, asking it to imbue the talisman with what you wish. So it's actually very simple. So you have the timing, hour of the moon, when the moon is in the proper mansion. You have the name of the spirit. You have the talisman. You can have candles, incense, and offering. Just wave the talisman in the incense smoke, calling on the name of the spirit, and ask it to imbue the talisman with what you wish. So, if you look here on page 28, it gives a basic mansion ritual. I love this. Light candles and incense. Color the black and white image, or use a color image, and write the goal and name of the lord of the mansion and names of the user or people to be affected by the talisman. Move the talisman back and forth through the smoke of the incense. Call upon the spirit of the mansion by name. Ask that the spirit fill the talisman with its power. You could ask for a specific thing. For example, to attract more business through the third mansion, which brings all good things, we might call upon the spirit of the third mansion, Amixiel, to empower the talisman as you wave it through the smoke and attract prosperous customers. Place the mansion image upright behind the incense and candles. So you wave it in the incense smoke, place it behind the candles. He has kind of a modern New Age approach, but looks good to me. Place them after you wave it through the incense smoke, calling on the spirit. Place it behind the incense and candles. Meditate on the mansion image. Its material form embodies the potential for the desired outcome. Then visualize the achievement of your goal. Meditate for about 10-15 minutes. Then place the talisman in the location where you wish the effect to be manifest. For example, place it in your shop to attract business. The talisman can also be carried in your purse or wallet, or worn in a locket, if the desired effect is personal to you, for example, wisdom or health. Regularly reconsecrate the talisman by repeating this ritual when the moon is in the appropriate mansion. Now, timing. Obviously, you want the moon in that mansion. I do the hour of the moon. It might also be a good idea to have the moon, make sure that the moon isn't like afflicted. My last Patreon video, I go into aspects and I talk about the fortunes and infortunes. So that was my last Patreon video I did before this one. I talk about aspects and astrology. I go into a lot of detail there about avoiding, especially like an opposition or square with Mars or Saturn. You don't want the moon opposed or square the sun. And especially if you're doing benevolent workings, you don't want the moon combust, especially if you can bring in a trine or sextile, or even a conjunction or trine or sextile friendly aspects with Jupiter or Venus. Bring in some of that positive energy. You might have the moon rising in the east on the ascendant, or the moon in the 10th house or the midheaven. So these are accidental dignities, not so much essential dignities, because you're working with the whole zodiac. Essential dignities are based on the whole zodiac. You're working with accidental dignities, which is everything else. Have the moon on the ascendant, moon in the midheaven, have it in sextile or trine aspect to Venus or Jupiter for benevolent workings. Make sure it's not combust or in a square opposition to Mars or Saturn or the sun. So, I don't really have time to go into all of that here, but in my last video I talk about aspects and things. Make sure that the moon is just, try to have the moon, just make sure that it's not in opposition or square to Saturn or Mars or the sun. I would avoid any kind of opposition or square aspect with these. or some would say any planet. Bring in one of the fortunes. Have a trine or sextile aspect with Jupiter or Venus. So just to bring in more positive power, or have the moon on the ascendant or in the midheaven. So these are accidental dignities, but they could help impact it. But ultimately, hour of the moon's in the proper mansion, light some candles and incense. I recommend agarwood or aloes, agarwood, not aloe vera, agarwood. Um, Wave the talisman and the incense smoke, call on the spirit. There are 28 spirits, the spirit that rules the mansion. Ask for what you want, and then you have, your thing. Maybe give a little offering, but you could just have candles, incense, smoke. What he uses here, which I think is fine, just color in the image and wave it through the incense smoke, calling on the spirit of the planet, and ask for what you want. Meditate on the image, think about what your goal, and then close out the ritual. You don't have to use a circle, but if you want to use a circle, what I would do, my favorite formula for the construction of magic circles, it's what I've always liked, is to take some ground charcoal, mix it with some black paint and some holy water from a church. That's a recipe that I like to use. Ground charcoal, holy, a little bit of holy water, and then add in an actual black paint. You could use canvas, you could use cloth or linen, you could use lots of things. You could just paint your circle. And in a double ring, what I would recommend is found in the 3 books of occult philosophy, book 2, chapter 22, where it says, of the tables of the planets, their virtues, forms, and what divine names, intelligences, and spirits are set over them. So if you go to the 3 books of occult philosophy by Agrippa from the 16th century, you go to book 2, chapter 22, of the tables of the planets, their virtues, forms, and what divine names, intelligent spirits rule over them. You go to, for the moon, you have, Hod, which is confusing for modern magic. We think of Hod as the Sephira, which is Mercury, but it's because the gematria value is 9, which is associated with the moon. So the letter He, Dalet, Hod, you put that. Elim, Aleph, Lamed, Yud, Mim. Elim has the gematria value of 81. And I would add Shaddai, or Shaddai El-Hai, which can be associated with the moon. And I would repeat these 3 Hebrew names 3 times, which makes 9, the number of the moon. So if you wanted to make a magic circle for this, for extra protection, you can do that. Sit in the circle, and I think you could reach your arm across. You don't have to be just, come on. You don't have to just be like neurotic about it. Sit in a circle. You can put your arm over it. Wave the talisman in the incense smoke, but you're mostly in the circle. Wave it in the incense smoke, call on the spirit. That's for protection if you wanted to. Or you could use a general circle of consecration from the Key of Solomon. Basically uses the 4 tetragrammaton, or 4 divine names used in the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. Yud, He, Vav, He in the east. Adonai in the south. Ehyeh in the west. Agla in the north. So that's all drawn from classical material that was repurposed in the 19th century. If you wanted to use a circle, you can just use that. Or you can use these divine names associated with the moon. Hod, Elim, Shaddai, El-Hai, those are 3 names repeated 3 times. But in any case, Christopher Warnock doesn't mention a circle. I think we can get a little too neurotic about things. I think if your space is clean, and you're clean, and your mind is clear, that's a whole topic about drugs and stuff like that, but I would not do this on anything. You don't need a substance to communicate with a spirit. That's a very particular thing. That's a whole other thing. I think there are uses for those things, but not dealing with astrological spirits. Make sure that you're clear. I wouldn't have any food on your stomach. Make sure that your mind, everything is clear, clear space. You know, I don't think you have to have a circle, but if you feel more comfortable, you could. Light some candles, wave the talisman in the incense smoke, call on the spirit by name, ask for what you're looking for, contemplate on the image, kind of focus on your goal. You have your ritual. Very simple. The way to perform the ritual, all that stuff, even talisman images that you can use. Where did I put that? I don't know where the book went. I mean, there's only one place it could be. How did I lose? Oh, it's under Pick a Tricks. This book right here is excellent, but there are 28 spirits and different talismans. I like this book because it goes through all of the different classical material in one spot. So the 28 mansions of the moon. Basically, there are two different monthly cycles with the moon. There's the waxing and waning. That's a totally other cycle. The moon could be growing or decreasing in any of the That's a whole other thing. The mansions of the moon have to do with where the moon is in the zodiac. So the circle of the zodiac is divided into 28 sections. So the mansions of the moon, it's found in Picatrix, it's found in Agrippa, it's found in the Astromagia. This book is really interesting. I've been working through the Book of the Moon, Liber Lunae, by Don Carr, forward by Stephen Skinner. Very interesting. It was written about in Francis Barrett's The Magus. So this is really, really cool, very useful. It's a whole system of magic unto itself. So it's a whole system of magic. And I encourage people to experiment, you know, and try it out and see what you think. One good way to begin is just to be more conscious of the lunar mansions. Have a lunar mansion calculator, or just look at where the moon is in the zodiac. And just be conscious of what mansion the moon is in at the time, and just bring more of that awareness. When you feel comfortable, try lighting some candles and some incense. I recommend agarwood. And try calling on the spirit of the mansion and ask for something politely within its office. So there's so much more that we can go into with this. But I think that that's good enough for today. So yep, the 22 mansions of the moon. I really appreciate y'all watching these videos and being on this journey with me. It really means a lot. And there's a lot more to come, y'all. Thank you so much, and I will see y'all in the next video. All right, have a great day, y'all.